Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku meet code lyoko. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sky over Japan was a familiar canvas of smog and sunlight, but the sky outside the window of the Boeing 787 was different. It was a deep, endless blue, stretching over the cloud layer like a vast, inverted ocean. Izuku Midoriya pressed his forehead against the cold plastic of the airplane window, his green eyes darting nervously across the horizon. His knuckles were white as he gripped the armrests, his breath hitching every time the aircraft shuddered through a patch of minor turbulence. "It's fine," he muttered to himself, the words tumbling out in a rapid-fire staccato. "It's just air displacement. Totally normal physics. You've jumped higher than this. Well, not higher than cruising altitude, that would be ridiculous, but you've experienced G-force. This is fine. Everything is fine." He looked down at his lap, where a thick dossier stamped with the UA High School official seal rested. The title was bold and intimidating: International Hero Exchange Initiative, Placement 001, France. It had been 3 months since the Kamino Ward incident. 3 months since the world saw the symbol of peace expend the last embers of his power. 3 months since All Might had retired. The vacuum left behind was palpable, a physical weight that pressed down on every hero in Japan, and specifically, on the boy who held his secret. UA High was in damage control mode, but they were also looking forward. Principal Nisa's logic had been impeccable, terrifyingly so. To build a new symbol, we cannot rely solely on the perspective of one nation, the mouse bear dog principal had said, pouring tea while Izuku sat trembling in the office. We must broaden the horizons of our future pillars. You, Midoriya, will be our test pilot. Why me? Izuku had asked, his voice cracking. All Might, in his skeletal true form, had placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Because, my boy, the world is watching us. They need to see that the spirit of heroism is everywhere. And, I think you need to see a world where you aren't constantly under the shadow of my legacy. Just for a little while. So here he was, flying halfway across the globe to a town called Boulogne-Billancourt, just outside of Paris. He wasn't going to a specialized hero academy. He was being placed in a general education boarding school called Katek Academy to observe civilian integration and international quirk relations. Izuku sighed, leaning back. He tapped the small, metallic device clipped to his right ear. It was a sleek, silver cuff with a small blinking blue light. Can you hear me, Midoriya? Over! The voice exploded in his ear, loud enough that the passenger next to him, an elderly French woman reading a magazine, jumped. Izuku frantically turned the volume down. I can hear you, Hatsum. Please don't scream. Just calibrating the LinguaLink Mark V. May Hatsum's voice crackled through the bone conduction technology. This baby is my masterpiece. It captures incoming audio, runs it through a cloud-based syntax algorithm, and feeds the translation directly into your cochlea. And when you speak, it projects a localized sound wave to correct your pronunciation. You'll sound like a native. Or at least, a native with a slight robotic lisp. We're working on the lisp. Right, Izuku whispered. And the battery life? Solid 8 hours. Just don't get it wet. Or hit it too hard. Or expose it to high-frequency electromagnetic waves. It might explode. But only a little bit. Thank you, Hatsum, Izuku said, a drop of sweat rolling down his temple. He tapped the device off. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their descent into Charles de Gaulle Airport. Izuku looked out the window again. The clouds were breaking, revealing the sprawling tapestry of France below. Green fields, gray urban sprawls, and the winding veins of rivers. He squeezed his hand into a fist. One for all hummed beneath his skin, a quiet, reassuring warmth. He wasn't just Izuku Midoriya, the quirkless kid from Aldera Junior High anymore. He was Deku, a provisional hero, plus ultra, he whispered to the glass. Even in French, the drive from the airport to the school was a blur of motion and anxiety. Izuku sat in the back of a black sedan provided by the Hero Public Safety Commission's French branch. The architecture changed rapidly, shifting from the modern glass of the airport district to the historic, stone facade charm of the suburbs. When the car finally pulled up to the gates of Katak Academy, Izuku felt a strange sense of displacement. UA High was a fortress, massive walls, security barriers, the USJ dome, glass towers reaching for the sky. It screamed power. Katak Academy looked like a park. It was nestled in a sea of green trees. There were old brick buildings with arches and courtyards. A bridge connected the school grounds to the street, spanning over a small road. It felt open, vulnerable, peaceful. The driver, a stoic man who hadn't spoken a word, popped the trunk. Izuku scrambled out, grabbing his 2 large suitcases. Merci, Izuku said, testing the gadget. The driver nodded and drove off, leaving Izuku standing at the gate. He took a deep breath, smelling damp earth, old stone, and sewage? No, just the nearby river. Midoriya! Midoriya! Izuku jumped, spinning around. A short, stout man with a gray mustache and a suit that seemed slightly too tight was bustling toward him across the courtyard. He looked flustered but welcoming. Ah, the prodigy from Japan! The man boomed. The Lingualink translated his French into Japanese with a slight delay. I am Jean-Pierre Delmas, the principal of Katak Academy. Welcome, welcome. It's an honor to be here, Principal Delmas. Izuku bowed deeply, a perfect 90-degree angle. Delmas blinked then chuckled. No need for such formality here, my boy. We are a place of learning, not a military camp. Though, with Jim around, one might wonder. Come, come. Let us get you settled. Izuku trailed behind the principal, dragging his luggage. His eyes scanned the environment, his mind automatically entering analysis mode. Perimeter is porous. Multiple entry points. Low fences. No visible court dampening sensors. If a villain attacked here, the evacuation time would be. He shook his head. Stop it. You're here to study, not to run security diagnostics. Your arrival has created quite a buzz, Delmas said, leading him toward a building marked with a sign that the earpiece translated as administration. It is not often we host a student from the prestigious UA High. We have students with special abilities here, of course. Quirks are universal, after all, but Katak is a standard curriculum school. We focus on math, science, history. We prepare children for life, not necessarily for combat. I understand, Izuku said. I'm looking forward to experiencing a normal education. Excellent. Now you will be staying in the dormitory building. We have placed you in a room with one of our transfer students, to help you adjust. But first, the paperwork. As they entered the office, a young girl with dark hair and intense eyes was standing by the secretary's desk, arguing about a late slip. She wore black, with a midriff-bearing shirt that would have violated UA's dress code instantly. She turned as they entered, her eyes landing on Izuku. She looked him up and down, her expression unreadable. Yumi, Delmas said. Perfect timing. This is our new exchange student, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku, this is Yumi Ishiyama. She is also from Japan originally, though her family has lived here for years. Izuku felt a wave of relief. Oh. It's nice to meet you, Ishiyama-san. Yumi raised an eyebrow at the suffix. Just Yumi is fine, she said. Her Japanese was flawless, no translator needed. So, you're the hero kid everyone's whispering about. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, blushing. I guess so? I'm just a student, really. Yumi studied him for a second longer, her gaze sharp. It wasn't hostile, but it was assessing. Like she was looking for a threat. Well, welcome to the madhouse. If you need help finding the dorms, let me know. I have class. She walked past him, and Izuku noticed a strange grace in her movements. She moved silently, her weight balanced. Martial arts training, Izuku noted instantly. Center of gravity is low. Alert posture. Charming girl, very bright, Delmas said, shuffling papers. Now sign here and here. The dormitory room was sparse but comfortable. It had 2 beds, 2 desks, and a large window overlooking the park. Izuku's roommate hadn't arrived yet, so he took the opportunity to unpack. He carefully placed his hero costume case, the gamma suitcase Hatsum had reinforced, under his bed. He unpacked his textbooks, his notebooks. Hero analysis for the future number 14 was currently in his back pocket, and a framed photo of his mother, Inko. He hesitated, then pulled out a limited edition Silver Age All Might figure. He looked for a place to put it. At UA, his room was a shrine. Here, he felt self-conscious. He placed the figure inside his desk drawer and closed it. Knock, knock. The door swung open before Izuku could answer. A boy with gravity-defying blonde hair with a purple spot in the center walked in. He was wearing copious amounts of pink and purple. A dog, a small, skinny thing that looked like a rat, trotted in behind him. "Salat," the boy chirped. "You must be the new guy." "I'm Odd. Odd della Rabbia." Izuku Midoriya. Izuku bowed instinctively. "Wait, is that a dog?" "That's Kiwi," Odd said, scooping the dog up. "Sure, don't tell Delmas or Jim. He's technically contraband. But look at this face. How could this be illegal?" Izuku smiled nervously. "He's very cute." "Right. Anyway, Ulrich is your roommate, but he's at soccer practice. I'm next door with Jeremy. We heard the hero kid had landed. We were wondering if you fly. Or shoot lasers?" Or Odd gasped dramatically. "Do you have a prehensile tail?" "No," Izuku laughed, waving his hands. "No tail. My quirk is super strength." "Sort of. It's a power enhancement type." "Super strength," Odd mused, flopping onto the empty bed. "Classic. Effective. I like it. My quirk is Future Flash. I can see about 3 seconds into the future, but only when I'm in immediate danger, or when the cafeteria is about to serve meatloaf. It's a survival instinct." Izuku's eyes widened. He immediately pulled his notebook out of his back pocket. "Precognition based on threat assessment? That's incredible. Does it trigger automatically or do you have to focus? Is it visual or a gut feeling? Does it consume stamina?" Odd blinked, leaning back as Izuku muttered and scribbled furiously. "Whoa, ease up there, Einstein. It's just a flash. Like a glitch in a video game. Anyway, come on. Dinner starts in 10 minutes. If we don't get there, Sisai will take the good table." "Sisai? The principal's daughter," Odd grimaced. "You'll see. She's a lot." The cafeteria was loud. The smell of baguette, cheese, and steaming vegetables filled the air, a stark contrast to Lunch Rush's gourmet hero cuisine, but it smelled delicious in a rustic way. Izuku carried his tray, following Odd through the maze of tables. He felt eyes on him. Whispers rippled through the room. "That's him? He looks kinda plain. I heard he fought a villain who leveled a city block. He looks like he's gonna cry." Odd led him to a round table near the window where 3 other students were sitting. "Guys, fresh meat," Odd announced, dropping his tray. The boy sitting across from him looked up. He had brown hair falling over his eyes and wore a drab olive shirt. This must be Ulrich. He looked tired, or maybe just bored. Next to him was a boy with glasses and blonde hair who was typing furiously on a laptop, Jeremy. And next to him was a girl with short pink hair and an ethereal, almost fragile appearance. "Hi," Izuku said shyly. "Hey," Ulrich said, nodding. "I'm Ulrich. Sorry I wasn't in the room." "I'm Jeremy," the boy with the laptop said, closing the lid halfway. "And this is Alita." Alita smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile that made Izuku feel instantly less anxious. "Welcome to Katek, Izuku." "Thank you." Izuku sat down. "It's a really nice campus." "It's okay," Ulrich shrugged. "Quiet. Usually." "So," Jeremy pushed his glasses up his nose. "UA High. That's the premier hero school in Asia. Top 0.1% acceptance rate. Your curriculum focuses on rescue ops, villain apprehension, and disaster management. Why send a student here? Katek is academically rigorous, but we rank 405th in France for quirk combat athletics." Izuku blinked. Jeremy had done his homework. It's an initiative to understand how quirks integrate into societies that aren't built around heroics. In Japan, everything revolves around heroes. Here, people just live. Principal Nisa thought it was important for me to see that. "Makes sense," Alita said softly. "It's easy to forget the world is normal when you're constantly fighting." There was a heaviness in her voice that caught Izuku's attention. He looked at the group. They seemed like normal teenagers, but there was a tension in their shoulders, a shared look in their eyes. Izuku knew that look. He saw it in the mirror every day. He saw it in Ida and Todoroki. It was the look of people who had seen combat. Why would students at a normal boarding school have the eyes of soldiers? Izuku noted it mentally. Before he could probe, a shadow fell over the table. Well, a high-pitched voice chimed. If it isn't the Reject Club, hogging the new celebrity. Izuku turned to see a girl with dark hair, perfectly styled, standing with a posse of 2 boys who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She was pretty, but her expression was sour as she looked at Yumi and Alita, before beaming a dazzling, fake smile at Izuku. I'm Elizabeth Delmas, she said, flipping her hair. But everyone calls me Sisai. I'm the principal's daughter. You really shouldn't sit with these losers, Midoriya-kun. They're weird, always disappearing, sneaking around. Bad influences. Hey! Odd threw a French fry at her. We are delightfully weird. There's a difference. Sisai ignored him, leaning closer to Izuku. I can show you around. I know all the best spots in the city. And I'd love to hear about your quirk. Is it flashy? Izuku recoiled slightly. She reminded him of the fans who used to swarm all night, but with a mean streak. Thank you, Sisai-san. But I'm actually really happy sitting here. These guys have been very welcoming. The table went silent. Ulrich smirked. Yumi, who had just arrived with her tray, let out a small laugh. Sisai's face turned a shade of red that matched her pants. Fine, she huffed. Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when Odd gives you fleas. She marched off, her lackeys trailing behind. Nice one, Ulrich said, bumping Izuku's fist. You just made an enemy for life. But it was worth it. She's intense, Izuku noted. She's a pain, Yumi said, sitting down next to Ulrich. But harmless. Mostly. So, Jeremy opened his laptop again. Midoriya. Your quirk. Super strength is a broad categorization. Are we talking tactile telekinesis, muscular hyperdensity, or energy emission? Izuku's eyes lit up. Finally, a language he spoke fluently. Oh. It's actually an energy accumulation type. I stockpile power and release it. Initially it caused massive backlash, broken bones mostly, but I've developed a style called full cowling that distributes the load evenly across my body to mitigate damage. It increases agility and durability, not just raw output. Jeremy's eyes widened behind his lenses. He started typing. Fascinating. Energy distribution. That sounds strangely familiar to how virtualization buffers work. Virtualization? Izuku asked. The table froze. All 5 of them exchanged glances. Video game term, Odd said quickly, stuffing his mouth with bread. Jeremy's a nerd. He designs games. Boring stuff. Coding. Algorithms. Zeros and ones. Right, Jeremy laughed nervously. Just a hobby. Izuku nodded, but his instincts were screaming. They're hiding something. He looked at Alita. She was staring at her food, her expression guarded. It's not just a hobby. But I'm the outsider. I shouldn't pry. The next morning, Izuku learned that gym class at Katek was a misnomer. It should have been called survival training with Jim. Jim Morales was a large man with a headband and a permanent scowl. He paced back and forth in front of the assembled class in the gymnasium, blowing a whistle for no apparent reason. All right, listen up. Jim barked. Today we're playing dodgeball. But not just any dodgeball. This is Morales-style dodgeball. The balls are weighted. The court is slippery. Pain is your teacher. Is he serious? Izuku whispered to Ulrich, who was stretching beside him. Deadly, Ulrich sighed. Just don't ask him about his past. He'll tell you he'd have to kill you. I see. Izuku wore his UAP uniform, the blue track suit with white lines. It stood out against the casual gym clothes of the Katek students. He felt the weight of expectation again. Midoriya! Jim pointed a finger at him. The hero! You're captain of Team A! Stern! You're captain of Team B! Ulrich stepped up for Team B. He gave Izuku a competitive grin. Don't hold back, hero. Izuku swallowed. Right. The game began with a shriek of whistles. Balls flew through the air with surprising velocity. Izuku realized quickly that while most students were average, the group he sat with at lunch were exceptional. Yumi moved with fluid grace, dodging balls by shifting her hips just inches. Odd leaped around like a monkey, laughing as he threw balls from midair. Ulrich was efficient, deflecting shots with his hands and countering instantly. Izuku stayed in the back, analyzing. I can't use full cowling. Even at 5%, a throw would shatter these kids' ribs. I have to rely on base physical stats. But his base stats, honed by cleaning trash from beaches and training with Gran Torino, were far above average. A ball zoomed towards Sisai, who was shrieking and cowering. Izuku moved. He didn't use his quirk, but he pushed off the floor with explosive power. He intercepted the ball, catching it one-handed with a loud thwack that echoed through the gym. Silence fell for a split second. Out! Izuku called, tossing the ball gently to the side. Whoa, Odd said from the sidelines. Did you see that acceleration? The game intensified. Soon, it was just Izuku on Team A, and Ulrich and William, a tall, dark-haired boy who seemed very eager to fight Izuku, on Team B. William launched a ball. Fast. Aimed right at Izuku's head. Izuku ducked under it effortlessly. Ulrich threw a second ball low. Izuku jumped, tucking his knees. He's not even using his quirk, Jeremy muttered from the bleachers, watching closely. His reaction time is around 0.15 seconds. That's peak human. I want to see what he can really do, William grunted. He grabbed 2 balls. Hey, hero! Think fast! He hurled both. At the same time, Ulrich, caught up in the heat of the moment, threw a third. 3 projectiles. Triangulated vectors. Speed high. Izuku's body reacted before his mind did. The danger sense he had honed in real villain fights kicked in. The world slowed down. Ball A, trajectory left shoulder. Ball B, trajectory right knee. Ball C, center mass. He couldn't just dodge. If he dodged, the balls would hit the students behind him. Green sparks crackled across his skin. Just a flicker. 1 for all, full cowling. 2%. Izuku moved. He didn't just step, he vanished. To the naked eye, he blurred. He caught 2 balls and kicked the third one out of the air. He landed in a crouch, the green lightning fading instantly. The gym was dead silent. The third ball, the one he had kicked, was embedded in the far wall, stuck in the plaster. Jim dropped his whistle. Izuku stood up, realizing what he had done. He rubbed the back of his head, laughing nervously. Sorry. Reflex. I'll pay for the wall. Ulrich stared at him, eyes wide. He looked at the wall, then back at Izuku. It wasn't fear in Ulrich's eyes. It was recognition. He holds back, Ulrich thought. Just like us. Team A wins. Jim yelled, recovering his composure. That's what I'm talking about. Explosive entry. Good hustle, Midoriya. Meanwhile, 500 meters away, beneath the abandoned Renault car factory, deep in the subterranean levels, a supercomputer hummed. It was a massive cylindrical machine, bathing the room in a cold blue light. Inside its quantum core, data streams flowed like rivers of light. Suddenly, the streams turned red. An eye appeared on the main monitor. The eye of Xana. The artificial intelligence had detected a surge. Not electrical. Not digital. It was a surge of biological energy so dense, so archaic, and so powerful that it registered as a threat to the system's core programming. It analyzed the source. Location: Katic Academy Gymnasium. Signature unknown. Variance high. Potential threat level critical. Xana did not feel fear. It processed data. And the data suggested that a weapon of mass destruction had just walked into its territory. The eye pulsed. It needed to test this new variable. It needed to see if the variable could bleed. On the screen, a progress bar appeared. Activating tower, Sector 5. Initiating materialization process. Target, Izuku Midoriya. Back in the locker room, the atmosphere was different. The boys were giving Izuku space, looking at him with a mix of awe and intimidation. Ulrich walked up to him as Izuku was changing back into his uniform. That wasn't normal strength, Ulrich said quietly. It's part of the training, Izuku deflected, closing his locker. Yui is intense, I bet. Ulrich leaned against the lockers. You know, you're not the only one with secrets, Midoriya. Izuku paused. He looked at Ulrich. I got that feeling. Just keep your eyes open. Katak is quiet, but it's not safe. Weird things happen here. Electrical surges. Computer glitches. If you see something strange... Ulrich hesitated. Just don't try to be a hero alone. Okay? It was a strange warning. Before Izuku could ask what he meant, the lights in the locker room flickered. A low hum vibrated through the metal benches. Like that? Izuku asked. Ulrich stiffened. He pulled a phone out of his pocket. It was vibrating. Gotta go, Ulrich said, his face hardening into a soldier's mask. He sprinted out of the locker room without another word. Izuku stood there, the warning echoing in his ears. Don't try to be a hero alone. He grabbed his bag. The lingua link in his ear crackled with static, a high-pitched whine that made him wince. Danger, Sector Ice. It wasn't Hatsum's voice. It was a digital, synthesized whisper. Izuku ran to the door. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. His normal study abroad program was officially over. Izuku stepped out into the courtyard. The sky had turned a strange, bruised purple color, though it might have just been the sunset. The wind had picked up. He saw Ulrich meeting with Yumi, Odd, and Jeremy by the park benches. They were huddled together, whispering urgently. They looked like a team preparing for a raid. Izuku took a step toward them, wanting to help, wanting to ask. But then, the lamppost next to him exploded. Sparks showered down. The electrical cable whipped out of the broken casing like a living snake, crackling with high-voltage blue energy. It lashed out, aiming not for Izuku, but for a group of younger students walking nearby. Look out! Izuku didn't think. He didn't analyze. He screamed, smash. He leaped, green lightning enveloping his body. He caught the live wire in his gloved hand, the insulation of his gamma suit taking the brunt of the shock. He wrenched the cable back, slamming it into the ground and stomping on it to sever the connection. He stood there, breathing heavy, smoke rising from his glove. The younger students were screaming, running away. Izuku looked up. The lyoko warriors were staring at him. They hadn't run. They were watching him with wide eyes. Jeremy Belpois adjusted his glasses, looking from his laptop screen to the glowing boy in the center of the courtyard. Ulrich, Jeremy said into his headset. Change of plans. Bring him to the factory. Are you crazy, Einstein? Odd hissed. He's a civilian. He just caught a 10,000-volt cable with his bare hand, Jeremy replied, his voice shaking slightly. He's not a civilian. And right now, he's the only one who can help us stop what's coming. Izuku straightened up, sensing their gaze. He looked at them, really looked at them, and realized the truth. They weren't just students. They were heroes. Heroes without licenses, fighting a war no one else could see. And he had just been drafted. The morning sun that filtered through the curtains of Katak Academy's dormitory did not bring warmth. It brought a sterile, revealing light that seemed to highlight the dust motes dancing in the air. For Izuku Midoriya, waking up in a foreign country was still a jarring experience. The sounds were different. There were no trains rumbling in the distance, no shouts of plus ultra from the UA track field. There was only the rustling of leaves from the park and the soft, rhythmic snoring of Ad della Rabbia. Izuku sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His hand instinctively went to the scar on his right arm, tracing the rough tissue. The events of the previous evening replayed in his mind with high-definition clarity. The exploding lamp, the lashing cable, the way the electricity had seemed to hunt. It wasn't a quirk accident. He had seen quirk accidents. They were chaotic, explosive, uncontrolled. This was precise, malicious. And then there were the eyes of his classmates. Ulrich, Yumi, Odd, Jeremy, and Alida. They hadn't looked confused. They had looked confirmed. Morning, sunshine. Izuku jumped, banging his knee against the metal frame of his bed. Odd was hanging upside down from the top bunk, his face inches from Izuku's. Kiwi, the small dog, was perched on Odd's stomach, defying gravity with impressive nonchalance. Gee, good morning, Odd-kun, Izuku stammered, his French aided by the earpiece sitting on the nightstand, which he quickly scrambled to put on. "You're the talk of the breakfast table already. And we haven't even gone down yet," Odd grinned, flipping himself onto the floor with a gymnast's grace. "The Boy Who Wrestles Lightning" sounds like a bad comic book title. Or a really good metal band. Izuku nervously laughed, reaching for his uniform. "It was just a reflex. The cable was loose. I just grabbed it." Odd stopped rummaging through his dresser. He turned, holding a purple shirt, and looked at Izuku. The playfulness was still there, but his eyes were sharp. "Right. You grabbed a live wire that was thrashing around like an angry python, and you didn't get turned into a piece of crispy tempura. Just a reflex. I have thick skin?" Izuku offered weakly. Odd snorted. "You're a terrible liar, Midoriya. But that's okay. We like mysteries. Keeps life interesting." He pulled the shirt on. "Come on. If we're late, Sisai will steal all the croissants. And a world without croissants is a world I don't want to save." "Save?" Izuku caught the word. "Save the world?" As he dressed, wrapping his red shoes, the specialized iron soles heavier than normal sneakers, he felt a pit in his stomach. He was here to study. He was here to learn about a peaceful society. But the air in this school tasted like ozone and secrets. The courtyard was buzzing. As Izuku walked toward the main building with Odd and Ulrich, who had joined them in the hall, looking sleep-deprived, he felt the heavy gaze of the student body. "There he is! Is it true he's immune to electricity? I heard he's a cyborg sent by the Japanese government." Izuku kept his head down, clutching his bag straps. "Is it always like this?" "Only when something interesting happens," Ulrich muttered, hands in his pockets. "Usually, they're gossiping about who Sisai is dating or what Jim's previous job was." "You're the flavor of the month." "Ignore them," Odd said, waving at a group of girls who giggled. "Fame is fleeting. Style is forever." Speaking of style, Aelita. Jeremy. Under the arches of the walkway, Jeremy Belpois and Aelita Stones were waiting. Jeremy was, as always, glued to a laptop screen, typing furiously while balancing his bag on one shoulder. Aelita stood close to him, looking at the screen with an intensity that matched his. When they saw Izuku, Jeremy snapped the laptop shut. "Midoriya," Jeremy nodded. His tone was professional, almost clinical. "Did you sleep well?" Yes. Thank you." "Good. We have a free period third block. Meet us in the library. There's something we need to discuss regarding your physics assignment." "I don't have a physics assignment with you," Izuku pointed out. "Exactly," Jeremy said, adjusting his glasses. "It's a very complicated assignment." The group split up for morning classes. Izuku found himself in history class, listening to a lecture on the French Revolution. He tried to focus, taking diligent notes in French to practice, but his mind kept drifting. He looked out the window. The sky was clear today, but the electrical lines running from the main road to the schools seemed to vibrate. He activated One for All at 1%, just a tiny hum in his eyes, to enhance his visual acuity. The lines were pulsing. Not the steady flow of AC current. It was a rhythmic staccato pulse. Dot. Dash. Dot. Dash. It looked like data transfer. Massive amounts of it. "Whatever attacked yesterday," Izuku wrote in the margins of his notebook, sketching the cable, "it wasn't a random surge. It feels like a quirk that manipulates infrastructure. But if it's a villain, why attack a school in the suburbs? What's the objective? Intimidation? Kidnapping?" He looked at the empty seat 2 rows down. Aelita's seat. She was in his class, but she looked pale. She kept rubbing her temples. The bell rang, jolting him. "Midoriya, a moment?" The teacher, a stern woman named Mrs. Hertz, beckoned him. Izuku walked up to the desk. "Your transfer papers mention you have a provisional hero license in Japan," she said, looking over her glasses. "While we admire heroism, please remember that use of quirks on campus without faculty supervision is strictly prohibited, except in designated training zones." "I understand, Sensei. Yesterday was an emergency. See that it remains an isolated incident. We don't want the parents thinking Katak is a war zone." "If only you knew," Izuku thought. The library was a sanctuary of silence. Rows of tall wooden shelves filled with books created a labyrinth of knowledge. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, illuminating the dust in the air. Izuku found the group at a large table in the back, secluded behind the section on 19th century industrial engineering. Jeremy, Alita, Ulrich, Odd, and Yumi were all there. The atmosphere was heavy. Sit down, Midoriya, Yumi said, sliding a chair out with her foot. She didn't look up from her textbook. Izuku sat. He placed his bag on the table. Is this an interrogation? He asked, half joking. Maybe, Ulrich said, crossing his arms. Jeremy turned his laptop around. On the screen was a graph. A sine wave that was spiking erratically. This is the local electrical grid for the last 12 hours, Jeremy explained. Normal variance is less than 5%. Since you arrived, we've seen spikes of 200%. But only in the vicinity of wherever you are. Izuku stared at the screen. You think I'm causing it? We think you're attracting it, Jeremy corrected. Or, more accurately, he is reacting to you. He? Izuku asked. The group exchanged glances. It was the look of a family discussing a dark secret in front of a guest. Midoriya, Alita spoke softly. Her voice was gentle, but there was a steel core to it. You're a hero student. You deal with villains. Bad people who want to hurt others. Yes. What if the villain isn't a person? She asked. What if it's something else? Izuku's mind raced. Not a person? A mutant animal? A sentient weapon? A quirk that outlived its user? I've fought Nomus, Izuku said quietly. Bioengineered monsters with no higher brain function. I've fought Stain, who is driven by ideology. I've fought pure evil. He clenched his fist. Whatever it is, if it's hurting people, I'll stop it. You can't punch a virus, Einstein, Odd muttered, balancing a pencil on his nose. A virus? Izuku blinked. Jeremy sighed. Look, we can't explain everything yet. It's too dangerous for you to know. But we need to know what you are. That lightning yesterday. That wasn't just static discharge. Your body, it changed. My scanners picked up a bioenergy reading that was off the charts. It was denser than anything I've ever seen. Izuku looked at his hands. The secret of One for All. All Might had told him to protect it with his life. But these people, they weren't villains. They were terrified kids trying to hold back a tide. It's called One for All, Izuku whispered. The table went silent. It's a power that accumulates. Izuku chose his words carefully. It stockpiles energy. Physical power. I can use it to enhance my speed, my strength. The lightning is the overflow, energy escaping because I can't contain it all perfectly yet. Stockpiles energy, Jeremy typed furiously. Like a battery. A living, breathing megabattery. That explains it, Yumi murmured. If he needs energy to materialize, you're like a walking nuclear reactor entering his backyard. Who is he? Izuku demanded, standing up. You keep saying he. If there's a villain targeting the school, we need to call the pro-heroes. We need to evacuate. No! Ulrich slammed his hand on the table. No police. No pros. They wouldn't understand. They'd make it worse. They would shut us down, Alita whispered, her eyes wide with fear. And if they shut us down... Xana wins. Xana. The name hung in the air like a curse. Before Izuku could ask what a Xana was, the library lights flickered. Bzzzt. The hum was louder this time. It wasn't just the lights. It was the computers along the wall. The electric pencil sharpener. The exit signs. Jeremy's laptop screen turned red. A single, stylized eye appeared on the monitor. Oh no, Jeremy gasped. He found us. Here? I jumped up, the pencil falling from his nose. In the library? That's low, even for him. I have overdue books. Midoriya! Yumi shouted. Get away from the wall. Izuku instinctively leaped forward, clearing the table. A split second later, the electrical socket on the wall where he had been sitting exploded. A thick, black industrial cable burst through the plaster like a chest burster from a horror movie. It didn't fall to the ground. It stood up, swaying, the stripped copper tip glowing with a lethal blue arc. Run! Ulrich yelled, grabbing Alita's hand. The library erupted into chaos. Students screamed, dropping books and scrambling for the doors. But the doors slammed shut, the electronic locks engaging with a heavy thud. "He's controlled the building's security," Jeremy yelled over the noise. "We're trapped." The cable in the wall wasn't alone. The overhead fluorescent light fixtures shattered, glass raining down on them. From the ceiling, more cables dropped down, snaking through the air. They were hunting. "It's looking for Alita," Ulrich gritted his teeth, scanning the room. "Formation!" Izuku watched in amazement as the students transformed into a unit. Ulrich kicked a table over, creating a barricade. Yumi grabbed 2 hardback encyclopedias, wielding them like her fans. Odd grabbed a rolling book cart and shoved it at the nearest cable. "Take that, you oversized phone charger!" Odd yelled. The cable struck the metal cart. Bang! The cart was blasted backward, electrified, scorching the carpet. "My quirk won't work on this," Yumi said, frustration in her voice. "I can't lift electricity. I can't see the future if the future is just we get fried." Odd added. Izuku stood in the center of the chaos. His mind went into overdrive. Enemy, environmental hazard. Type, remote manipulation. Goal, capture or elimination. Weakness, the source. He looked at the cables. They were all connected to the main conduit in the ceiling. "Midoriya!" Jeremy shouted. "Do something! You're the hero!" Izuku took a deep breath. Air Force gloves. Gamma suit. Iron soles. "I can do this. Everyone, get behind me!" Izuku ordered. His voice changed. It wasn't the shy exchange student anymore. It was Deku. He planted his feet. Red veins of energy crawled up his legs. Green sparks began to dance around his shoulders. One for all, full cowling. 5%. A massive cable, thicker than the rest, dropped from the center of the ceiling. It coiled like a cobra, aiming directly at Alita, who was cowering behind Ulrich. Smash! Izuku moved. He didn't run, he glided. He kicked off the floor, shattering the wood parquet. He intercepted the strike, catching the cable with both hands. The voltage hit him. It was agonizing. It felt like his bones were vibrating. But the gloves, Mei Hatsume's masterpiece, held. The insulation absorbed the initial spike. "Get back!" Izuku gritted his teeth, wrestling the metal snake. "He's absorbing it," Jeremy noted, watching his phone screen. "No, he's redirecting it?" Izuku felt the power of the grid flowing into him, mixing with One for All. It was too much. He had to discharge it. Detroit. Izuku spun, using the momentum of the cable. He slammed the live wire into the floor, pinning it with his iron heel. Smash! The impact sent a shockwave through the room. The floorboards splintered. A blast of wind pressure blew the library windows outward, shattering the glass. The connection severed. The cable went limp. But XANA wasn't done. From the computer terminals, arcs of pure electricity jumped out, bypassing the cables entirely. They formed a cage around the group, closing in. "He's adapting," Yumi said, backing up against a bookshelf. "He's skipping the physical medium." "I can't punch pure energy," Izuku panted, the green lightning still crackling around him. "I need a target." "The junction box." Jeremy pointed to a gray metal panel near the librarian's desk. "That's the node. If you destroy that, you cut the power to this wing." "Got it." Izuku crouched. He channeled power into his legs. 8%. "I need speed," he blurred. To the students cowering under tables, he was just a streak of green light. He wall ran along the bookshelves, dodging bolts of lightning that snapped at his heels. He reached the junction box. But as he pulled back his fist, a cable whipped out from behind the desk, wrapping around his ankle. Gah! Izuku was yanked out of the air. He slammed into a bookshelf, bringing hundreds of volumes of French literature down on top of him. "Midoriya!" Alita screamed. The cable tightened around his leg, dragging him toward the open socket. It was trying to pull him into the wall. Or electrocute him at point-blank range. Izuku struggled, but the leverage was bad. He couldn't get a grip. Suddenly, a blur of motion, Ulrich sprinted across the room. He didn't have super speed, but he was fast. He slid on his knees, pulling something from his pocket. A pen? No, a small metallic rod. He jammed the metal rod into the joint of the cable, creating a fulcrum. Odd. Now! Ulrich yelled. Odd leaped from the top of a table. Laser arrow! Odd didn't fire an arrow. He threw a dart, a literal dart from the dorm room, with uncanny precision. It hit the emergency sprinkler system trigger on the ceiling. Hisses. Water sprayed down instantly. Are you crazy? Jeremy screamed. Water and electricity. Trust me. Odd yelled. The water hit the floor. The cables hissed and sparked, thrashing wildly. But the water also shorted out the sensors XANA was using to target them. The precise, hunting movements became random flailing. It gave Izuku the second he needed. He ripped his leg free. He stood up, drenched, hair plastered to his forehead. The green lightning mixed with the water, making him glow like a beacon. He looked at the junction box, one for all shoot style. He jumped, spinning in the air. St. Louis. Smash! His iron-soled foot connected with the metal panel. The impact was absolute. The metal didn't just dent, it crumpled. The wall behind it imploded. There was a blinding flash of blue light, a deafening pop, and then, darkness. The library went black. The hum stopped. The cables fell to the floor, lifeless rubber and copper. The only light came from the green sparks fading from Izuku's body, and the faint glow of the streetlights outside the broken windows. Silence returned to the library, broken only by the sound of dripping water and heavy breathing. Is everyone okay? Izuku asked, his voice trembling slightly. We're alive, Ulrich said from the dark. Thanks to you, and thanks to my brilliant plan, Odd piped up. Though I think the librarian is going to kill us. We need to go. Jeremy's voice was urgent. The emergency generators will kick in any second. And XANA will try again. Where? Izuku asked. To the factory, Elita said. She stepped forward, reaching out to take Izuku's hand. Her hand was cold, small, but her grip was firm. We owe you the truth. Getting out of the school was surprisingly easy in the chaos. With the power out and the fire alarms finally blaring, the faculty was distracted evacuating the dorms. The group of 6 slipped away into the darkness of the park. They moved with practiced efficiency, avoiding the main paths. Izuku ran alongside them, his mind still reeling. Secret tunnels? Factories? A villain named XANA? They reached a small, unassuming maintenance shed near the river. Ulrich looked around to ensure they weren't being followed, then opened a hidden grate in the floor. Ladies first, Odd gestured to the dark hole. A sewer? Izuku wrinkled his nose. It's the scenic route, Yumi said, climbing down the ladder. Izuku followed. The smell wasn't as bad as he expected, mostly damp stone and old water. They walked along a narrow walkway beside a flowing channel. The atmosphere had shifted. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the weight of the coming conversation. So, Izuku broke the silence, his voice echoing in the tunnel. You guys do this often? Every other week, Ulrich said. Keeps us fit. Midoriya, Jeremy stopped walking. He turned to face Izuku. In the dim light of the tunnel, the boy genius looked much older than his years. What you saw back there, that was XANA. He's a multi-agent artificial intelligence program capable of infecting network-connected electronics. Izuku blinked. An AI? Like, a computer virus? A sentient virus, a leader corrected. One that wants to destroy humanity. Izuku processed this. In his world, technology was advanced, but AI was usually regulated or part of a quirk. A rogue AI? That was sci-fi territory, and he's attacking from the internet? From a virtual world, Jeremy said. A world called Lyoko. It exists inside a supercomputer located in an abandoned factory just ahead. A virtual world. Izuku muttered, his hand going to his chin. So when he attacks, he's materializing data into the real world. That explains the cables. He's converting electrical potential into physical matter. That's why my quirk attracted him. One for all is a massive energy stockpile. To an AI, I must look like a walking battery. Exactly, Jeremy smiled. You catch on fast. But why keep it secret? Izuku asked. Why not tell the heroes? There are tech heroes. Power Loader, May Hatsum, they could help. Because if the government finds out about the supercomputer, Yumi said, her face grim, they won't destroy XANA. They'll try to weaponize him. Or they'll shut him off. Shutting him off sounds good, Izuku argued. Alita lives inside the supercomputer, Ulrich said quietly. Izuku froze. He looked at the pink-haired girl. She looked human. She felt human. I was virtualized, Alita said, looking down. For a long time. Jeremy materialized me recently. But I'm still linked to it. If they shut off the supercomputer, I die. Izuku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the damp sewer air. He looked at Alita. He saw the fear in her eyes. And he saw the determination in the others. They weren't playing hero. They were protecting their friend. They were fighting a silent war to save one life, risking their own every day. It reminded him of everything All Might stood for. To save people with a smile. To protect the innocent. I understand, Izuku said firmly. He looked at them, his green eyes burning with resolve. I won't tell anyone. I promise. Odd grinned, clapping Izuku on the back. Welcome to the club, Super Deku. It's just Deku, Izuku corrected. We'll work on the name, Odd dismissed. They reached the end of the tunnel. A metal ladder led up. Ulrich climbed up first, pushing open a massive metal plate. They emerged onto a bridge. It was a cavernous industrial space. Chains hung from the ceiling. Dust coated everything. In the center of the room, suspended over a massive cooling pit, was a large, circular computer console. Jeremy ran to the chair, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Transfer, scanner, virtualization, Jeremy muttered. Systems are online. A holographic map appeared in the air. It showed 4 sectors: ice, forest, desert, mountain. And in the center, a sphere. This is Lyoko, Jeremy said. Suddenly, a red alarm blared. Alert. Activated tower detected. Sector ice. He's not waiting, Jeremy said, his face pale. He's launching another attack. The library was just a probe. The real attack is starting now. What is it? Yumi asked. Another cable? Jeremy pulled up a window. No. He's possessed a bulldozer at the construction site near the bridge. It's heading for the factory. He wants to destroy the supercomputer physically. If he destroys the factory, Alita whispered. Game over, Ulrich finished. Yumi, you stay here, Jeremy commanded. You need to stop that bulldozer. Ulrich, Alita, to the scanners. You need to deactivate the tower on Lyoko to cut the link. Got it, Ulrich said, heading for the elevator. Wait. Izuku stepped forward. Let me help. Jeremy hesitated. Midoriya, you don't know how to fight on Lyoko. You don't have a virtual form. I can fight the bulldozer, Izuku said. I can help Yumi. No, Jeremy shook his head. If you go out there, XANA will sense your energy again. He might divert the attack to capture you. You're a liability on Earth right now. Then send me in, Izuku said. The group stopped. Send you to Lyoko? Odd raised an eyebrow. You said it's a virtual world, Izuku said, his mind racing. If it's data, maybe my energy won't leak as much. Maybe the system can contain it. And, if there are monsters in there, you need firepower. Jeremy looked at Izuku. He looked at the readings on his screen. The bulldozer was 2 minutes away. The tower in the ice sector was heavily guarded by 3 crabs and a block of hornets. Ulrich and Odd might not be enough. The scanner reads DNA and digitizes the subconscious to create an avatar, Jeremy muttered. With his quirk, the avatar definition could be unstable. But the power output, Jeremy, Alita said. We need him. Jeremy took a deep breath. He adjusted his glasses. Okay. But if you feel any pain, mental pain, you tell me immediately. The scanners aren't calibrated for whatever you are. Izuku nodded. I can take it. All right, Jeremy spun his chair around. Ulrich, Odd, Alita, Midoriya. Go to the scanner room. Prepare for virtualization. Izuku followed them into the elevator. The metal grate closed. The lift began to descend into the bowels of the factory. He looked at his hands. He was about to leave the physical world. He was about to become data. Hey, Ulrich said, breaking the tension. Don't freak out when you see the scanners. It feels like falling asleep and waking up in a dream where giant bugs try to shoot you, Odd added helpfully. Izuku smiled, a nervous, shaky smile. He clenched his fist. I'm ready, he said. And for the first time since arriving in France, he truly meant it. The elevator doors opened. 3 cylindrical pods stood waiting, glowing with yellow light. There are only 3 scanners, Izuku noted. I'll go in the second wave, Alita said. You 3 go first. Clear the landing zone. Izuku stepped into the middle scanner. The door hissed shut. He was alone in the tube. Transfer, Ulrich, Jeremy's voice echoed in the pod. Transfer, Odd. Transfer, Midoriya. Izuku felt a wind pick up. He closed his eyes. Scanner, Ulrich. Scanner, Odd. Scanner, Midoriya. A light began to scan him from feet to head. He felt a tingling sensation, like static electricity, but deeper. It felt like his very atoms were being pulled apart. Virtualization. The world dissolved into white. Izuku Midoriya left Earth. The elevator descent felt like a journey into the center of the Earth. The rusty metal cage rattled and groaned, passing through layers of darkness and concrete, leaving the damp smell of the sewers behind for something more sterile, more electrical. Izuku Midoriya stood in the corner of the lift, clutching the straps of his yellow backpack. His heart was hammering a rhythm against his ribs that matched the frantic beat of the techno-industrial hum vibrating through the shaft. Next to him, Ulrich Stern leaned against the wall, eyes closed, arms crossed. He looked like a soldier meditating before a drop. Odd Della Robbia was checking his fingernails, humming a tune that sounded suspiciously like the opening to a cartoon show. Alita Stone stood in the center, her posture rigid, her eyes fixed on the floor numbers counting down. So, Izuku broke the silence, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space. A supercomputer. In a factory. Under a school. That controls a virtual world. It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, Odd admitted, grinning. Usually we just say we're going to the arcade. It's less of a mouthful, and this? XANA, Izuku continued, testing the name. It's a program? A true artificial intelligence? A multi-agent system. Jeremy's voice came through the elevator speaker, crisp and anxious. He was already at the control chair in the lab above them, monitoring their descent. Originally designed to disrupt enemy communications. But it evolved. It gained sentience. And with it ambition. Ambition, Izuku muttered, his hand going to his chin. Usually, AI rebellion scenarios in fiction stem from a logic error, protecting humanity by enslaving it, or self-preservation. But you said it wants to destroy. It wants to dominate, Alita said softly. She looked up at Izuku. It sees humanity as a variable that causes chaos. It wants to replace our chaotic world with its ordered one. A digital silence. The elevator jolted to a halt. The grate slid open with a screech of metal on metal. They stepped out into the scanner room. Izuku's breath hitched. It was a cathedral of technology. 3 massive, cylindrical pods stood like monoliths in the center of the room, bathed in a soft, amber light. Thick cables snaked across the floor and ceiling, feeding into the pods like life support lines. The air here was cool and tasted of ozone, a scent Izuku associated with high-level support gear labs, but multiplied by 100. This is it, Ulrich said, walking over to the first scanner. He placed a hand on the glass surface. The gateway. Izuku approached the middle scanner slowly. He touched the smooth, cold surface. Inside, he could see complex arrays of lasers and emitters. It reads your entire physical structure, Odd explained, bouncing on his heels. Molecular composition, brainwave patterns, memories, the contents of your stomach. Hope you didn't eat too much cheese. And translates it into digital code. It digitizes matter? Izuku's eyes went wide. That's theoretical quantum displacement. To break down a human body and reassemble it as data without losing the consciousness stream. The processing power required would be astronomical. And the soul? The quirk factor? Does it digitize the quirk factor as biological data or as a subroutine of the personality? Midoriya! Jeremy's voice barked from the speakers, cutting off the mutterstorm. We don't have time for a thesis. I have a reading on the attack. It's escalating. On a large monitor on the wall, A window popped up showing a live feed from a traffic camera near the bridge. A massive yellow bulldozer, the kind used for heavy demolition, was roaring down the street. But it wasn't moving normally. Its movements were jerky, aggressive. The cockpit was glowing with a pulsating red light, the eye of Xana. It's heading for the factory entrance, Jeremy shouted. It's going to collapse the bridge supports. If that bridge falls, the access to the factory is cut off, and the structural integrity of the lab could be compromised. The supercomputer is sensitive to vibration, Elita gasped. If the ceiling collapses, we're buried alive, Ulrich finished grimly. Yumi, Jeremy commanded. You're the only one with the range to stop that thing on Earth. You have to intercept it before it hits the bridge. The elevator doors opened again, and Yumi Ishiyama stepped out. She had evidently taken the stairs down to the lab and then the lift. She looked fierce, holding her phone. I'm on it, Yumi said. She looked at the group. You guys handle the tower. I'll handle the heavy metal. Be careful, Yumi, Ulrich said, his voice dropping an octave. It's a lot of steel. I've handled worse, she smirked, though the worry in her eyes was visible. She turned and sprinted back toward the ladder access that led to the surface. Okay, Jeremy said. We have a problem. 3 scanners. 4 people. Izuka looked at the 3 pods. I can wait. Send the veterans first. No, Jeremy said. The tower is in the ice sector. It's guarded. My scans show 3 blocks and a swarm of hornets. Ulrich and Odd need backup immediately. And Elita needs to get to the tower interface. I'll go in the second wave, Elita said firmly. Ulrich and Odd are the vanguard. Midoriya, he's the heavy hitter. Send him with them. I'll follow once the landing zone is clear. But Elita, Jeremy started. If they get overwhelmed instantly, my being there won't help, Elita argued. Send the fighter. Jeremy sighed, the sound loud over the intercom. Fine. Ulrich Odd Midoriya. Into the scanners. Now, Ulrich stepped into the left pod. Odd jumped into the right one. Izuka stood before the center scanner. He hesitated for a fraction of a second. This wasn't just walking through a door. This was surrendering his physical form to a machine he didn't understand. But people are in danger. The image of All Might flashed in his mind. Ideally, a hero saves everyone. Even in a computer. Izuka stepped inside. The glass doors hissed shut, sealing him in. The space was tight. The walls were lined with vertical lights that began to spin. A low hum started at his feet and rose in pitch, vibrating through the soles of his shoes. Can you hear me, Midoriya? Jeremy asked. Loud and clear, Izuka replied, gripping the handles on the side of the pod. Okay. Listen carefully. This is going to feel weird. You might feel a sensation of falling. Do not panic. Do not try to move. Just let the system take you. Got it. Initiating transfer, Jeremy chanted, the ritual beginning. Transfer, Ulrich. Transfer, Odd. Transfer, Midoriya. The hum intensified. The lights spun faster, blurring into a solid wall of white. Izuka felt weightless, his stomach dropping as if the elevator cable had snapped. Scanner, Ulrich. Scanner, Odd. Scanner, Midoriya. A ring of bright light appeared at his feet and began to move upward. This is it. Izuka closed his eyes. He felt the light pass over his knees, his waist, his chest. It didn't hurt, but it tingled. It felt like his body was dissolving into carbonated water. Up in the lab, Jeremy's eyes widened as he watched the data streams on his screens. What on earth? Jeremy muttered. What's wrong? Elita asked, leaning over the railing of the scanner room balcony. She had run back up to the lab to wait for her turn. It's Midoriya's file size, Jeremy said, his fingers flying across the keys to compensate for the lag. It's massive. A normal human virtualization is about 50 terabytes of data. Midoriya is pushing 500. The buffer is overflowing. Is it his memory? No, Jeremy watched the code cascading down the screen in green waterfalls. It's his DNA. It's rewriting the avatar parameters in real time. The scanner is detecting multiple genetic imprints within his quirk factor. It's confused. It's trying to virtualize ghosts? Override it, Jeremy. Elita shouted. Force the compilation. I'm trying. rerouting auxiliary power from the cooling systems, compressing the texture files. Jeremy slammed the enter key. Virtualization. Back in the scanner, the light consumed Izuku's head. The world shattered. There was no transition. No fade to black. One moment he was in a plastic tube in France. The next, he was falling through a kaleidoscope of binary code. Zeros and ones streamed past him like stars in hyperspace. He felt his body stretching, contorting, not in pain, but in definition. He felt the one for all stockpiled deep within him, usually a ball of fire in his gut, suddenly expand, filling every pixel of his new existence. Smash! A whisper echoed in the digital void. It wasn't his voice. It was the vestige of the first user. Then impact. Izuku hit the ground. Hard. He tumbled, instinctively tucking into a roll to disperse the momentum. He slid across a surface that was slick and cold, coming to a stop on one knee. He opened his eyes. Whoa! He was on a plateau of ice. The ground was a translucent, pale blue, geometric glaciers rising in the distance like sharp, crystalline teeth. The sky was a deep, digital void filled with floating data streams. He stood up, looking at his hands. They weren't his hands. Or rather they were, but improved. He was wearing a suit that looked like a sleek, armored evolution of his costume gamma. The base was a dark, metallic teal. The white shoulder pads were angular and glowing with a soft internal light. His iron soles were now integrated into the leg armor, glowing red. But the biggest change was the cape. He didn't wear a cape on Earth. Here, a holographic projection of energy shimmered from his shoulder blades, flickering like green fire in the shape of a short cape. And his gloves, the Air Force gloves, were oversized, bulky gauntlets that hummed with power. Nice look, Midoriya, a voice called out. Izuku spun around. Standing on an ice ridge nearby was odd. But this wasn't the odd from school. This was a catboy. He wore a purple jumpsuit, had claws, and a tail that twitched behind him. Next to him was Ulrich. He looked like a samurai, clad in tan and brown armor, a katana strapped to his back. You guys look. Izuku blinked. Appropriate. And you look like a comic book exploded, Odd laughed, leaping down from the ridge. He landed silently on the ice. How's the signal? Can you move? Izuku tested his body. He jumped. He soared 20 feet into the air. Whoa! He flailed, gravity feeling lower than Earth's standard. He landed, skidding on the ice. It's floaty. Friction is low. It's the ice sector, Ulrich explained, walking over. Traction is terrible. You have to compensate. And don't fall off the edge. Ulrich pointed to the edge of the plateau. Izuku walked over and looked down. There was nothing. Just an endless digital abyss. The digital sea, Ulrich said gravely. If you fall in there, you don't respawn. You're deleted. Forever. Izuku gulped, stepping back. Noted. Avoid the void. Midoriya, can you hear me? Jeremy's voice seemed to come from inside Izuku's head. I hear you, Jeremy. Good. Your avatar compiled successfully, though the file compression was aggressive. Check your HUD. You should see a life point gauge. Izuku focused. A transparent interface appeared in his peripheral vision. A green bar labeled LP sat at 100. Below it, a blue bar labeled OFA. I see it. Okay. Unlike Earth, you don't feel pain here, not really. But every hit takes LP. If it hits 0, you devirtualize and return to the scanner. But try to avoid that. We need you to clear the path. The tower is 2 plateaus north, Alita's voice chimed in. I'm in the scanner now. Sending transfer. Heads up. Odd yelled, his ears twitching. We've got company. The ground shook. From behind a large spire of ice, 3 blocky, rectangular monsters marched out. They had long, spindly legs and a single eye on their boxy bodies. Blocks, Ulrich drew his katana. They have laser blasters and can freeze you. Watch out for the ice beam. As if on cue, the top of the lead block spun around, and a red laser fired. Pew! It hit the ice near Izuku's feet, leaving a scorch mark. It's just like a game, Izuku muttered. Pattern recognition. Enemy analysis. Less muttering, more fighting. Odd yelled. Laser arrow. Odd aimed his wrist. A burst of yellow energy darts shot out, hitting one of the blocks. It staggered, digital static flashing around it, but didn't explode. "They're tanky today," Odd grumbled. "Midoriya!" Ulrich shouted, deflecting a laser blast with his sword. "Show us what you can do," Izuku nodded. Time to test the engine. He channeled one for all. On Earth, he had to carefully regulate the percentage, 5%, 8%, maybe 20% for a brief burst. Here, he felt unburdened. The digital body didn't have bones to break. It didn't have muscles to tear. One for all, full cowling. Green electricity erupted around him. But it wasn't the jagged lightning of Earth. It was pixelated, square particles of green light floating upward. He dashed. The speed was intoxicating. He crossed the distance to the blocks in a blink. Smash! He punched the center block. His fist connected with the eye. There was a sound like a bass drop. Boom! The block didn't just break. It shattered into 1,000 pixels instantly. Whoa! Izuku skidded to a halt, looking at his fist. That was effective. Effective? Odd laughed, dodging a laser. You one-shot the block. Usually that takes 3 arrows. Watch your LP. Jeremy warned. Izuku looked at his HUD. LP 90. What? Izuku panicked. I didn't get hit. It's recoil damage. Jeremy explained quickly. The physics engine can't handle the force output you just generated. It calculated the Newton's third law pushback as damage to your avatar frame. You're hurting yourself to hit them, just like old times, Izuku grimaced. Okay. I need to dial it back. Precision over power. The remaining 2 blocks turned their attention to Izuku. Their eyes glowed blue. Ice beams! Ulrich warned. Super sprint. Ulrich glowed with a yellow aura and dashed forward, moving so fast he left afterimages. He slashed at the legs of one block, causing it to collapse. The other block fired an ice beam at Izuku. Izuku tried to dodge, but his feet slipped on the digital ice. Whoops! The beam hit his shoulder. A layer of ice instantly encased his left arm, pinning it to his side. LP 70. I can't move my arm. It wears off in 30 seconds, Odd shouted, flipping over a laser blast. Use your legs. Right. Shoot style. Izuku jumped, spinning in the air. He couldn't use his left arm, so he focused the power into his iron saws. He came down like a meteor, axe kicking the block. Crack. The monster exploded. Clear! Ulrich shouted, sheathing his sword. Not yet, Jeremy interrupted. I'm detecting a swarm of hornets emerging from the tower. And something else. A heavy unit. A crab? Odd asked. No, Jeremy's voice was tense. A megatank. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Katak Academy bridge was trembling. Yumi stood in the middle of the road, her black hair whipping in the wind. She was dressed in her everyday clothes, black jeans and a midriff-bearing top, but she held her position like a warrior. 50 meters away, the possessed bulldozer roared. Its engine sounded like a beast in pain. The XANA symbol on its grille pulsed with a sinister red light. Come on, you bucket of bolts, Yumi whispered. The machine charged. It was slow, but it had momentum. If it hit the bridge supports, the factory below would be crushed. Yumi ran. Not away, but toward it. She needed to blind it. She leaped, planting a foot on the hood of a parked car, and vaulted into the air. She pulled a handful of shuriken, not real ones, but gym weights she had grabbed from the locker room. It was all she had. She threw them. They bounced harmlessly off the reinforced glass of the cockpit. Right. Real-world physics, she cursed. I miss my fans. The bulldozer swerved, its massive blade swinging toward her. Yumi rolled, feeling the wind of the steel blade pass inches over her head. The machine slammed into the guardrail of the bridge. Concrete cracked. The bridge groaned. Jeremy! Yumi shouted into her phone. I can't stop it physically. It's too heavy. Distract it! Jeremy yelled back. Buy us time! Alita is just landing now. The bulldozer reversed, gears grinding, preparing for another ramming speed run at the central pillar. Yumi looked around. She saw a fire hydrant. Okay, she breathed. Time to improvise. She ran to the hydrant, and kicked the cap off with a precise, martial arts strike. Water geysered into the air. Standing in the spray, she waited. The bulldozer turned toward her. It saw the target. It revved its engine and charged. Sector Ice. Alita materialized on the plateau. She looked like a digital elf, pink hair, pointy ears, and a pink and cream outfit. She landed softly. "I'm here," she announced. "Welcome to the party," Princess Saad called out. Midoriya is currently playing tag with a bowling ball. Izuku was indeed busy. The megatank was a rolling sphere of metallic armor. It rolled around the ice bowl at breakneck speeds, crushing everything in its path. When it stopped, the shell would open to reveal a massive eye that fired a circular wave of energy. "Midoriya, don't try to punch it when it's closed," Ulrich yelled. "It's invulnerable. I noticed," Izuku shouted, wall jumping off an ice spire to avoid being flattened. The mega tank opened. The eye glowed. "Now!" Ulrich yelled. But before Ulrich or Odd could strike, a swarm of hornets, flying insect-like monsters, buzzed down, firing lasers. "Cover fire!" Odd yelled, rapid-firing arrows at the hornets. Izuku landed on the ice, sliding. The mega-tank was charging its laser. It was aiming at Alita. "No you don't!" Izuku didn't have time to close the distance. He needed range. He remembered his training. Air Force. He cocked his right hand back. He focused one for all into the very tip of his fingers. He flicked. Delaware. Smash! A compressed blast of wind pressure shot from his glove. In the digital world, the air pressure manifested as a transparent distortion wave. It flew across the battlefield. It missed the mega-tank's eye. "I missed!" Izuku gasped. But the wind blast hit the ice under the mega-tank. The physics engine reacted. The frictionless surface shattered. The mega-tank, balanced precariously to fire, lost its footing, or rather, its traction. It slipped. The laser fired wild, slicing the top off an ice mountain instead of hitting Alita. The recoil of the laser, combined with the slippery floor, sent the mega-tank spinning backward. It rolled off the edge of the plateau. It fell silently into the digital sea. "Strike!" Odd cheered. "That wasn't a strike, that was a ring out," Ulrich corrected, smiling. "Nice thinking, Midoriya." I meant to hit the eye," Izuku admitted, rubbing his head. "A win is a win," Alita said, running past him. "The hornets are still here. Cover me to the tower." The tower was a tall, white cylindrical structure glowing with a red aura. "I'm on it," Izuku said. The hornets buzzed, diving in formation. "Shield!" Odd shouted, creating a purple energy barrier to block a volley of lasers. "Triangulate!" Ulrich shouted. 3 clones of Ulrich appeared, confusing the hornets. Izuku watched them work. They were a seamless unit. Odd defended, Ulrich distracted, Alita advanced. "I need to fit in," Izuku thought. "I'm not the solo hero here. I'm the support." He saw a hornet flanking Alita. Izuku didn't punch. He used his speed. He grabbed a chunk of digital ice debris from the shattered ground. Full cowling, he threw the ice chunk like a baseball. It flew straight and true, smashing the hornet out of the air. "Go, Alita!" Izuku screamed. Alita reached the base of the tower. She passed through the red halo. She entered. Inside the tower, data streams flowed upward in a calming blue river. Alita stepped onto the platform. She levitated upward to the higher level. She reached the interface console. She placed her hand on the screen. Alita, code. Her fingers flew across the holographic keyboard. LYKO, enter. On Earth. The bulldozer was inches from Yumi. The massive blade was about to crush her against the railing. Suddenly, the machine stopped. The red light in the cockpit flickered and died. The engine stalled. The XANAI on the grill faded to gray. The silence was deafening. Yumi slumped against the wet railing, breathing hard. "Cutting it close, guys. Sector Ice." The red halo around the tower turned white. A pulse of pure white light swept across the sector. The remaining hornets froze, then dissolved into pixels. "Tower deactivated," Jeremy's voice came through, filled with relief. "Great job, team." "And Midoriya, not bad for a rookie." Izuku stood on the ice, his chest heaving, though he didn't actually need oxygen here. He looked at his hands. The Air Force gloves were glowing faintly. He looked at Alita emerging from the tower. She smiled at him. Thank you, Izuku, she said. Return to the past now, Jeremy said. Prepare for temporal reset. Wait, return to the what? Izuku asked. Oh right, Odd grinned, his tail swishing. You're gonna love this. Or throw up. 50-50. The sky above Lyoko turned white. A massive energy wave engulfed them. Return to the past now. The world dissolved. Katak Academy. 8 a.m. Yesterday. Izuku blinked. He was back in his bed. The sun was shining. Odd was hanging upside down from the top bunk. Morning, sunshine. Odd chirped. Izuku sat up, grabbing his head. What just happened? He looked at the clock. It was the morning of his first full day again. Odd hopped down. We reset time. Xana's attack never happened. The bridge is fine. The library is fixed. And no one remembers a thing. Odd leaned in close. Except us. Because we were scanned. Izuku looked at his hands. They were normal hands. No scars from the battle. No Air Force gloves, but he remembered. He remembered the feeling of the digital wind. He remembered the team. We saved them, Izuku whispered. We did, Odd said, throwing him a pair of socks. Now hurry up. If we're late, Sisai will steal all the croissants. Izuku smiled. It was the same joke. But this time, he was in on it. Coming, Izuku said. He was Izuku Midoriya. Hero student. And now, Lyoko warrior. The sensation of the return to the past was not like waking up from a dream. It was more like a cassette tape being rewound, a high-pitched screech of reality reversing, followed by a sudden, jarring click of the play button being pressed again. Izuku Midoriya gasped, sitting bolt upright in his bed. His chest heaved as if he had just finished a marathon. He looked around the room. The morning sunlight was hitting the floorboards at the exact same angle it had yesterday. Morning, sunshine. Izuku whipped his head around. Adela Rabia was hanging upside down from the top bunk, Kiwi the dog balanced precariously on his stomach. Izuku breathed out, the name tasting familiar and strange at the same time. You said that yesterday. Odd flipped down to the floor, landing with a practiced thud. Technically, I said it today. But since you remember it being yesterday, that means the ARC ETP worked. Congratulations, Midoriya. You are now officially a time traveler. We should get you a badge. Izuku rubbed his face, his hands trembling slightly. It really happened. Xana. The bulldozer. The factory. And the part where you punched a digital block of ice into oblivion, Odd added, rummaging through his drawer for a clean shirt. That was the highlight. Seriously, Ulrich is going to be jealous of that damage output. Izuku looked at his hands. They were scarred, rough, and undeniably human. The sleek, digital armor of his avatar was gone, replaced by his pajamas. But the memory of the code, the feeling of being Data, was seared into his mind. Does it always feel like this? Izuku asked, swinging his legs out of bed. Like you're out of sync? You get used to it, Odd shrugged. It's like jet lag, but for your soul. Come on. If we hurry, we can beat Sisai to the croissants. Again, the school day proceeded with an eerie predictability. Because they had rewound time to the previous morning, or rather, reset the timeline to before the attack, everything played out exactly as it had. In history class, Mrs. Hertz dropped her chalk at 9:15 a.m. Izuku caught it before it hit the ground, startling her. Reflexes, Midoriya, she muttered, adjusting her glasses. Sorry, Izuku whispered. At lunch, the group gathered at their usual table. The atmosphere was lighter than the previous first day. The tension of the unknown was gone, replaced by the camaraderie of shared battle. So, Jeremy Belpois opened his laptop, blocking his view of the cafeteria meatloaf. I've been analyzing the data logs from yesterday's excursion. Specifically your avatar, Midoriya. Is something wrong? Izuku asked, biting into a baguette. Wrong? No. Terrifying? Yes, Jeremy turned the screen around. It showed a 3D wireframe of Izuku's avatar, the green-armored, cape-wearing warrior. Your file size is unstable. When you use your quirk, or the digital approximation of it, the code expands rapidly. It's causing buffer overflows. Buffer overflows? Imagine trying to pour a gallon of water into a thimble, Yumi explained, stabbing a green bean with her fork. You're the gallon. The scanner is the thimble. It creates lag, Jeremy continued. And worse, it creates a feedback loop in the physics engine. I noticed it during the fight with the blocks. Every time you landed a hit, your life points dropped slightly. Recall damage, Ulrich said, nodding. He looked at Izuku with a serious expression. I warned you about that. In lyoko, Newton's third law is enforced by the system. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you hit something with 100% force, the system hits you back with 100% force to simulate the impact stress. Izuku dropped his bread. So, if I use a 100% smash, you'd probably delete the enemy. Jeremy pushed his glasses up. And then you'd instantly devirtualize yourself. It's a suicide move, Izuku groaned, putting his head in his hands. It's just like when I first got One for All. I broke my bones every time I used it. Now I'm breaking my life bar. You need to learn control, Alita said gently. She reached out and touched his arm. Lyoko isn't Earth. The physics are suggestible. You don't need raw power to win. You need to understand the rules of the world. Which is why, Ulrich stood up, we're skipping fourth period. We're going to the factory. Training session. Skipping class? Izuku looked horrified. But, my attendance record. Principal Nizu will. Principal Nizu isn't here, Odd grinned. And besides, you've already lived through fourth period. It's just Jim yelling about medicine balls. You're not missing anything. The factory felt different without the blaring red alarms of a XANA attack. It was cold, silent, and vast. The supercomputer hummed with a low, rhythmic thrumming sound that felt like a heartbeat. Okay, Jeremy sat in the command chair. I'm loading up a simulation bubble in Sector 5. No XANA, no monsters. Just a sparring match. Ulrich versus Midoriya. Izuku stood in the scanner room, feeling the familiar anxiety. Are you sure about this? Positive, Ulrich's voice came from the scanner next to him. You need to learn how to move without blowing yourself up. And I need to see if I can keep up with a superhero. Transfer, Ulrich. Transfer, Midoriya. The virtualization process was less disorienting the second time. Izuku anticipated the sensation of dissolution. When the white light faded, he was standing on the blue, hexagonal floor of the arena, a special zone Jeremy had programmed for training. Izuku looked down at his avatar. The green armor, the holographic cape, the heavy gauntlets. He clenched his fist. The power of One for All hummed beneath the digital skin, demanding release. Ready? Ulrich called out. The samurai stood 20 feet away, his katana drawn. The blade hummed with yellow energy. Ready, Izuku said. He shifted into his fighting stance. Shoot style. Begin! Jeremy shouted over the comms. Izuku moved. He didn't use full cowling yet. He relied on his base speed. He dashed forward, aiming a kick at Ulrich's midsection. Ulrich didn't block. He blurred. Super sprint. Ulrich appeared behind Izuku instantly. Too slow. The flat of the katana smacked Izuku's back. LPE 90. Izuku stumbled forward, surprised. Fast. Don't rely on your eyes, Ulrich instructed, circling him. In lyoko, speed is a variable, not a physical trait. I can run fast because I command the system to move my coordinates. You run fast because you're pushing against the ground. Stop pushing. Just move, Izuku frowned. Don't push? He tried again. One for all, full cowling. 5%. Green pixels flared around him. He vanished, reappearing mid-air above Ulrich for a drop kick. Manchester smash. He swung his leg down. Ulrich looked up calm. Triangulate. Izuku's foot connected with Ulrich, but passed right through him. A hologram. What? The real Ulrich slid in from the side, sweeping Izuku's legs. Izuku hit the ground hard. LP80. Ow, Izuku muttered. Okay, that actually jars me a bit. You're fighting the environment, Ulrich said, sheathing his sword. You're treating the floor like concrete. It's data. When you impact, you're creating shockwaves that the system has to render. It slows you down. Look at your feet. Izuku looked down. Where he had landed, the floor was glitching, flickering between blue and white. "You're too heavy," Jeremy's voice cut in. "Not weight-wise, but data-wise. Your energy density is causing local latency. Midoriya, try to lower the output. Visualize your power not as an explosion, but as a stream. A flow of code. A flow." Izuku closed his eyes. He remembered the training with Gran Torino. The taiyaki in the microwave. Don't let it explode. Keep it circulating. But here, he had to visualize it as data. Input. Process. Output. He opened his eyes. The green lightning around him smoothed out. It wasn't jagged anymore. It was pulsing rhythmically. "Better," Ulrich nodded. Again. They sparred for an hour. Izuku learned that in lyoko, intent mattered more than muscle. If he believed he could jump that high, the system assisted him. If he doubted, he fell. He also learned about the recoil. He tried a 20% flick at a floating target block. Pow! The block vanished. LP 75. Lost 5 points from the shockwave alone. "So I have a cap," Izuku panted. "If I go over 15%, I take damage." "Exactly," Jeremy said. "Think of it as a durability stat. Your avatar isn't optimized for high-tier attacks yet. Until I can patch your code, you're a glass cannon." "Glass cannon Deku," Odd laughed over the comms. "Has a nice ring to it." Suddenly, the soothing blue light of the arena turned red. The heartbeat of the supercomputer spiked. "Training's over." Jeremy's voice lost its calm. "XANA is waking up. Already?" Ulrich tensed. "He usually waits a few days after a reset." "He's learning," Alita said. "He knows we have a new weapon. He wants to test it." "Where's the tower?" Izuku asked, the hero instinct taking over instantly. "Sector, forest," Jeremy typed furiously. "And oh no. He's launching an attack on Earth simultaneously." "What is it?" Yumi asked from the lab. She had stayed behind to monitor. "I'm reading a massive pressure spike in the Katic boiler room," Jeremy said. "The central heating system. He's possessed the thermostat and the pressure valves." "The boiler room?" Yumi's eyes widened. "If that explodes, it'll take out the science wing and the dorms," Jeremy finished. "Yumi, you're closest. Go, on it." Yumi sprinted for the elevator. "Ulrich, Midoriya," Jeremy commanded. "I'm virtualizing Odd and Alita now. You two head to the forest sector edge. The tower is hidden deep in the woods." "Understood," Ulrich said. He looked at Izuku. "Ready for the real thing?" Izuku clenched his fists, the green code humming softly. "Ready." Lyoko, forest sector. The forest sector was beautiful and disorienting. Giant trees with smooth, cylindrical trunks rose into a canopy of green data leaves. The ground was a network of mossy paths floating over the void. Unlike the ice sector, there was plenty of cover, but the sight lines were terrible. Izuku and Ulrich materialized on a narrow path. "Stay close," Ulrich whispered, his hand on his hilt. "Ambush territory." A moment later, Odd and Alita materialized behind them. "I love a walk in the woods," Odd quipped, stretching his claws. "Did you bring the picnic basket?" "Sure," Ulrich hissed. "Listen." Izuku focused his hearing. "One for all, 2%. He heard a low humming sound. Not the usual monster sound. It sounded like buzzing. "Hornets," Izuku whispered. "Worse," Jeremy said in their ears. "The scan shows a swarm. 20 units. And they're acting strange. They're not patrolling. They're waiting." "Waiting for what?" Odd asked. As if to answer, the trees around them began to dissolve. "What the?" Izuku jumped back. "The textures are failing." Alita gasped. "XANA isn't just sending monsters. He's corrupting the sector data to trap us." The path beneath them flickered. 1 second it was solid moss. The next, it was wireframe. "Jump!" Ulrich yelled. They leaped to the next platform just as the one they were standing on deleted itself, plunging into the digital sea. "He's deleting the floor behind us," Izuku realized. "He's forcing us forward. Into the ambush," Ulrich finished. "We have no choice. Move!" They sprinted through the forest. The world was glitching around them. Trees flickered in and out of existence. The sky turned a static gray. Ahead, in a clearing, the tower pulsed red. But guarding it was a nightmare. It wasn't just hornets. It was a massive cluster of them, flying in a tight formation that resembled a giant, undulating fist. And on the ground, 2 crabs, crustacean-like tanks with tall, sharp legs, stood guard. That's a lot of firepower, Odd gulped. Midoriya, Ulrich looked at him. We need to break that formation. If the hornets swarm us while the floor is deleting, we're toast. I can't fly, Izuku said, analyzing the battlefield. But I can create an opening. Watch your LP, Jeremy warned. Izuku nodded. He looked at the crabs. They were tall. Their weak point was the XNA symbol on their carapace, usually on top. Odd, I need a boost. Izuku yelled. You got it, Greenie. Odd crouched, lacing his fingers together. Izuku ran. The floor behind him vanished into the void, the deletion wave catching up. He stepped into Odd's hands. Odd heaved upward with his cat-like strength. Alley-oop! Izuku launched into the air. He soared above the crabs. The hornets saw him. The swarm turned, lasers charging. Now! Izuku spun in the air. He didn't aim at the monsters. He aimed at the trees. Delaware smash. Air Force. He flicked his fingers, not at 100%, but at a rapid-fire 15%. Snap. 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 Compressed air bullets shot out, hitting the thick branches of the digital trees above the crabs. The branches, already unstable from the glitching sector, snapped. Massive logs of data rained down on the monsters. One crab was crushed instantly. The other stumbled, its legs tangling in the falling debris. The hornets scattered to avoid the falling timber. Formation broken. Ulrich yelled. Charge! Ulrich and Aelita sprinted across the clearing. Odd fired arrows from the back line, picking off the hornets that tried to regroup. Izuku landed hard. LP 65. Recoil from the landing air usage. I'm okay. Izuku yelled, rolling to his feet. A crab, the one that had stumbled, turned toward him. Its laser charged. Izuku was out of position. He couldn't dodge in time. Suddenly, the crab froze. It twitched. Sparks flew from its joints. What happened? Izuku asked. Lag. Jeremy shouted. The falling trees caused a rendering spike. The crab is buffering. Buffering? Izuku blinked. Seriously? Take the shot. Izuku didn't hesitate. He closed the distance. One for all, full cowling. 10%. He channeled the energy into his leg. Don't explode. Flow. He delivered a clean, sweeping kick to the crab's legs. Iron soles. The legs shattered. The crab collapsed. Izuku hopped onto its back and stomped on the eye symbol. Boom. Nice tech exploitation. Jeremy cheered. Earth. Katic Academy boiler room. Yumi kicked the door open. A wall of heat hit her instantly. The air was thick with steam, hissing from every pipe. The boiler itself, a massive iron tank, was shaking violently. The pressure gauge needle was buried in the red. Jeremy, it's gonna blow. Yumi shouted into her phone, covering her face with her arm. I can't hack it remotely. Jeremy yelled. He's hard-locked the system. You have to release the pressure manually. Manually? Yumi looked at the valve wheel. It was glowing red-hot. Use something for leverage. Yumi looked around. There was a metal pipe on the floor. She grabbed it. She ran to the valve. The steam burned her skin. She jammed the pipe into the wheel spokes and heaved. It wouldn't budge. It stuck. Suddenly, a steam pipe next to her burst. A jet of scalding vapor shot out. Yumi rolled backward, coughing. Yumi! Jeremy shouted. Are you okay? I can't get close. Yumi gasped. The steam it's targeting me. The steam jets weren't random. They were angling toward her. XANA was using the pressure release valves as weapons. I need a distraction. Yumi yelled. Lyoko, forest sector. Aelita is almost at the tower. Ulrich shouted. They were at the base of the tower. Aelita was running toward the entrance. But the last 3 hornets were diving in a suicide run. They weren't shooting. They were accelerating to ram her. They're going to crash into her. Odd yelled. I'm out of arrows. I can't reach them. Ulrich gritted his teeth. Izuku looked at the distance. He was too far away to punch. He was too far to kick. Think. He looked at his gloves. Air Force. But shooting air wouldn't stop 3 suicide bombers in time. He needed a wall. He looked at the ground. The mossy path was glitching, loose pixels floating up. The environment is unstable. Izuku remembered the lesson. Intent matters. He slammed his hands onto the ground. Manchester smash. Area denial. He pumped one for all directly into the floor code. He didn't try to break it. He tried to lift it. A massive slab of the digital path ripped upward, creating a vertical wall of earth and code right behind Alita. LP30. The 3 hornets slammed into the wall. Boom. 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 The explosion shook the platform. Alita was thrown forward by the shockwave, tumbling into the tower entrance. She's in! Ulrich cheered. Izuku collapsed to his knees, his avatar flickering. That took a lot. You manipulated the terrain geometry. Jeremy sounded impressed. You didn't just break it, you terraformed it. Midoriya, your quirk acts like a developer tool in here. Good to know, Izuku panted. Earth. The pressure in the boiler room hit critical mass. The tank began to bulge. Yumi braced herself, preparing for the explosion. But then, the red light on the control panel turned white. The shaking stopped. The hissing died down. The steam vents closed. The boiler groaned, settling back into its mountings. Yumi dropped the pipe, sliding down the wall to the floor. She was drenched in sweat, her hair plastered to her face. Tower deactivated, Jeremy's voice whispered in her ear. We're safe. Too close, Yumi whispered. Way too close. Lyoko. The return to the past washed over them again. The white light cleansed the forest, restoring the trees, the path, and Izuku's life points. Mission accomplished, Alita smiled, stepping out of the tower. Izuku looked at his hands. They were steady now. I think I'm getting the hang of this, he said. Don't get cocky, Ulrich smirked, sheathing his sword. You still owe me a rematch in the arena. You're on, Izuku smiled back. Epilogue. The next morning, 3rd loop. Izuku sat in class, tapping his pencil. The lecture was the same. The birds chirping outside were the same. But as he looked out the window, he saw the electrical lines. They were quiet. No pulsing. No data stream. He looked down at his notebook. He had started a new page, Hero Analysis, Lyoko Squad. Ulrich High Speed Close Quarters. Weakness Range. Odd Range Specialist High Agility. Weakness Defense. Yumi, Telekinesis Mid-Range. Weakness Physical Strength. Alita, the key. Ability to modify terrain. Weakness, low combat stats. And at the bottom, Deku Powerhouse. Glitchy. High output causes recall. Strategy. Act as the tank/heavy artillery. Protect the team. He closed the notebook. He wasn't just a student anymore. He wasn't just an exchange student. He was a Lyoko warrior. And somewhere, deep in the digital sea, XANA was watching. And calculating. The glitch in the system wasn't a bug. It was a feature. And XANA was already figuring out how to exploit it.